Hello, my name is Chris and I'm a U-Haul hitch professional. If you're planning on towing a trailer with your Chevy Trax, then you're going to need trailer wiring. It is required by the law. Now let's take a look at how I completed this install. You will need the following tools or supplies to complete this installation. Begin this installation with your cargo hatch open and remove your floor coverings. We're now ready to remove the rear threshold. We just need to simply pry it up. Use a trim panel tool if necessary. You can now release your side trims. Let's begin here on the driver's side. Remove the cargo hook with a 10mm socket. We can now begin releasing the side trim, again using our trim panel tool. With your trim pulled back, you can now see the tail light connector very far back and high up here. It will be tricky. You will have to do this mostly by feel. Disconnect the red safety tab, press in the adapters tab, and pull it loose. Now repeat these steps on the passenger side. We're now ready to install our wire harness. We're going to begin by routing the green harness from this section over here on the driver's side to the passenger side and connect it, and then pull all the slack backwards and continue connecting connections. You can use an extra length of wire to go from the passenger side backwards to the driver's side in order to fish the connector to the passenger side. Now tape your green wire to your extra length of wire and pull it to the passenger side. You can now pass the green wire behind the passenger side trim and make the connections. The adapter you disconnected and can access will get this first, and then we will then reconnect this back to the vehicle where you will be doing it all by feel. Don't forget to depress the red safety tab. Again, don't forget to depress this once you have made the connection inside. It should install with the red safety tab and button facing down. You can now pull all the excess slack in the green wire to the driver's side and zip tie it to this existing electrical connection. In order to make the driver's side tail light connection, it is potentially pulling our converter box underneath where it's harder to access. So we're going to go ahead and connect our ground wire and our power wire. Right here will be a good spot right behind this electrical wire to ground the white wire, giving us as much slack as possible for hiding the converter box. Use a drill with a 1/4-inch socket and the provided self-tapping screw. We're now going to access the grommet where the power wire will come through the vehicle from outside. Right here, this electrical connection we're so familiar with now, we're going to pop this grommet out. And we're going to want to pierce a small hole in it somewhere. Be sure to avoid your existing electrical wires. I like using a sharp flat blade screwdriver. Find a good point and poke through. Now when we get the power wire here, we have a place to pass it through. Our grommet is roughly here. You need to pass your fish wire down a narrow channel until it opens up and will fall out the bumper down here. Now we can use our extra length of wire to pass down to underneath the bumper in order to retrieve the power wire when we get it to the rear of the vehicle. We're now ready to install our fuse holder and our power wire. Because I'm using the U-Haul exclusive Power Wire 1 that is OEM quality, pre-braided for abrasion resistance, we're going to work our way from the engine compartment backwards in order to utilize it all. Open your fuse panel by depressing the 2 tabs on the cover. To find a power point, we can access right here. You can remove this fastener with a 13mm socket and perhaps a short extension for ease. Place on the ring terminal of the fuse holder over the post and reaffix it with the fastener. Cover the 1 hot lead in your fuse holder with the cover while we move forward. You can now reinstall the fuse box cover. We're now ready to pass a fishing pole down the firewall in order to retrieve the other end of our power wire 1. But we need to aim towards the driver's side to find an opening underneath. My hard metal brake lines are right here. I'm going to go ahead and pass the wire over this structural support and then tape it to my fishing pole and bring it back up. Let's pass it behind any existing electrical lines. There's a bracket right here we can go underneath, and now connect it to our fuse holder. We can now use some zip ties to secure our fuse holder here out of the way and work all the slack of our power wire rearward while using zip ties and following the hard metal brake lines to the back of the vehicle. At the gas tank, continue following the brake lines out the driver's side and backwards. At the rear of the vehicle, be sure to go over your rear crossmember supports. Avoid the exhaust as well as the suspension coil. Don't forget to trim all of your zip ties. Pull as much slack as you can out of your fishing device so that you have just enough to grab it on the inside. Now tape your power wire as high up the fishing device as you can access. Now pull up just enough of your fishing wire to grab the power wire. Remove the power wire from the fishing device, pull all the slack out, and secure it with a couple of zip ties. We can now tape the 4-flat connector to the fishing device and pull it back down to underneath the bumper. We're now going to pass the 4-flat connector over an existing bumper fascia bracket and get it into our mounting area. And so that we don't pull too much slack down and we keep it in the vehicle, let's go ahead and mount this before continuing back in the vehicle. For this wiring install on this Chevy Trax, we do have a really steep incline on the bracket. So this new ETP universal bracket that grabs onto the receiver is perfect for this install. If you do not have one, you can pick one up at your nearest local U-Haul Hitch Center. As well, you can order one from the link in the description below. Use the provided hardware to affix the electrical bracket to the receiver and then to affix the connector to the bracket. Go ahead and place the electrical bracket on the receiver. Now use two 10mm tools to tighten the hardware. Tighten down a few turns on one side, then switch to the other. Tighten down a few turns and switch back to allow the bracket to tighten evenly. Before mounting the connector, place on the retention strap of the dust cover. Now insert your 4-flat connector between the bracket. Leaving the ground connector to the left will always make using a tester easier to read later on. Now also place the second piece of the bracket and affix with the provided hardware. Now tighten the hardware again using your 10mm tools, switching back and forth between each side after a couple of turns. Tighten snugly, but do not over tighten these bolts. You can now cover the connector with the rubber dust cover. We can now strip the end of our power wire in order to make a connection. Because we're in the interior of a vehicle, we're going to use a 2-port lever action butt connector from ETP. Affix your double-sided sticky tape to the converter box. We're now going to install the yellow and brown connector. As I said in the beginning, this may make the converter box harder to see. You can now pass your yellow and brown wire behind the driver's side trim and make the connections. Now let's zip tie up any remaining wiring. We can now reinstall all the trim. And finally, we can now install our fuse. That concludes trailer wiring for your Chevy Trax. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to practice safe trailering, and we can't wait to see you out there. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with your local U-Haul hitch professional, please visit us online at uhaulhitches.com. You can also download the U-Haul app using the link in the description for even more ways to manage your hitch and towing needs.